Mark, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Braiden. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, almost 2 years ago, November 2022, we were sitting right here, practically in the same place, making magic happen.
Yeah, I can't believe, it's been 2 years since I last was on your podcast, and so much has changed. It feels like 5, 10 years ago.
Life changes in a moment, man. Nowadays, I mean, you've experienced that. That's what brings us here today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just, 4 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. So that's kind of changed everything, flipped my life upside down.
You've obviously been super open about your journey and your cancer journey. What initially inspired you to start talking about your cancer journey?
Yeah, so you know, last time we spoke, I was going through a hard divorce, and my divorce was finally finalized, and I was just at a hard place in my life, a very stressful place in my life. And I decided to step back from social media because normally I'm the type who posts a lot and I'm very vocal and I just love sharing my life with others. And when I was going through that period of, going through the divorce, I decided to step back and just kind of regroup and become less private. And so I deleted my social media, and I just, I traveled for a little bit and just kind of regrouped. And I was living a really good life for like from like January of this year to like June. I had like 6 months of just an effective, great life, and it was beautiful. And once I got diagnosed with cancer, I felt like, you know what, I think I'm ready to share my life again and ready to go back into the public eye and become more vocal, especially about a topic like this where cancer affects so many people in different ways. I think it's like one in every two men will experience cancer in their life, and one in every three women, and then like one in every five people will experience some sort of cancer. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be vocal about it, and I'm going to be myself and be true to myself. And, I don't have to share everything, but I definitely wanted to get back in the game of being a little bit more public, especially about a topic like this that I know people are interested in, and it's a hot topic, and a lot of people can relate.
Absolutely, Mark. So what kind of cancer do you have at this time?
So I have esophageal cancer. It's so your esophagus is, that lining from your mouth to your stomach, and it's like a little, tube or something like that. And so my esophagus, naturally you produce acid, and it helps break down food particles that go into your stomach and settle, and you digest your food. Well, for me, yeah, I was having trouble swallowing, and it was more and more difficult for me to swallow. But I quickly discovered that there's something terribly wrong. So yeah, so your esophagus is just right here, and it helps break down your food and helps you swallow. And then it hits your upper intestine and then goes into your lower intestine, and then you create a bowel movement. So that's kind of like the process of that.
That's fair. It's so that was what was the time that you were like, okay, I need to go get checked? When did you hit that point?
Yeah, so I'm a teacher. I'm a substitute teacher, and I was just trying to make it through the last couple of days of school. And so this was about like June 2nd, June 3rd. I think the last day of school is June 6th. I mentally was trying to get through the last part of school, and then I had my kids. I'm divorced, so I have my kids like every other weekend, and we switch off. So I wanted to be with my kids, and then address my problem of swallowing. So for a couple of months, I noticed it. A couple of months prior, I was having difficulty swallowing, and it progressively got worse. It got so bad to the point, and I remember the date. It was June 2nd. We had just came out of church, and we were eating at a restaurant, and I was eating some pasta, and it got so bad, Braden, that the food kind of just sat like right here. it didn't even go down. It just sat right here, and I just like coughed it back up, and I realized that I physically cannot swallow anymore. And that was a scary moment. And that was the moment I said, you know what, I'm going to the emergency room because this has gone too far. I wish I would have gone a little sooner. If you're watching this and you're like, oh, I have a problem and I'm just putting it away, stop what you're doing right now and go to the emergency room. Too many, we live a fast life, especially here in America, and we're always on the go, and we have a lot of priorities, and our health sometimes we neglect. So I'm thankful that I went at the time that I went, because I think it's like stage 2, stage 3 cancer, but some people aren't as fortunate, and they prolong it and they go later, and then it becomes a little bit too late sometimes.
So at this point, it was stage 2 to 3 when you found it?
Yeah, so the thing with cancer is they don't really know the exact staging until it's all over and done with. So I'm going to endure an intense surgery where they're going to cut out some of my esophagus with the tumor inside of it. And that's when they'll be able to look at it and dive deeper and see what stage it actually was. But yeah, there's everything from stage 0 to sometimes even stage 5. So they diagnosed me initially, it's called the initial staging. That was like 2B or something like that. So there's like different, levels, and it was like almost reaching 3. So we won't know for sure until it's all over with. So I'm about like a stage 2/3.
Do you know what the difference is between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
I
what we want to
do.
make the whole podcast about. But I am kind of intrigued what the difference is.
Yeah, so really quick, a quick breakdown. I've done my homework ever since I got diagnosed. I've just dove into what cancer is and the stages and things like that. So by all means, I'm no expert, but I did look into it briefly. And stage 0 is when cancer is forming in you, and it hasn't reached like any lymph nodes. It hasn't spread. It's pretty like much like a baby cancer. And so the girl Topanga from Boy Meets World, she recently got diagnosed with breast cancer stage 0. So there is a stage 0. Stage 1 is where it's growing, and it's a little bit bigger than a certain size. Like my cancer, my tumor, the tumor inside of me was like the size of a strawberry. So they measure like the size of your tumor, and that determines what stage it is too. So if it's like a semi little size, then it's like a stage 1 or 2. 3 and 4 is like massive sizes. If it's a stage 2, that means that it broke through the muscles, and it's kind of like infecting your muscles, and it's growing, and there's also benign and malignant. So benign means it's not cancerous, it's just a tumor forming. Malignant means that it is cancerous. So there's that you factor in, and then the last thing you factor in is if it hit the lymph nodes. So if it hit the lymph nodes, it's stage 3. If it broke past the lymph nodes and it's now traveling into your major organs, that's stage 4 because it's spreading. I think it's called mastatizing or something like that. It's spreading. So yeah, so those are the different levels of cancer, and the beauty about it is that nowadays, even if you're at stage 4, you still have hope. There is a way that you can reverse it or get rid of it or cure, like get it out of your body. So there's hope. So don't worry if you're like watching this and you have stage 4 cancer. It's not too late. There are ways that we can deal with it, especially now. In the last like 2 to 5 years, there's been such a breakthrough in medicine and treatment for cancer. So there's hope. Don't worry.
Absolutely. I love that you say that. Healing is a true thing, and life is good. Life's a beautiful thing. I'm sure you've really came to realize that over this last year. So,
Yeah, life is beautiful for sure. It's a gift.
what are some of the things that you've learned? What are some of the things that cancer has changed in your perspective of life over the last couple months?
You know, Cancer has taught me two things. The first thing it taught me was to be more present in life. It's like I quickly learned that like God's plans are different from my plans. Like I could plan all I want, but you never know if it's going to go as planned. So yeah, I learned the first thing was to be more present and take each day as a gift, and not don't plan too far ahead because you might not even get there. And the second thing I learned was it's okay to ask for help. I was a very independent man, and I prided myself in doing things efficiently, earning my own money, paying my own bills, cooking my own meals, taking care of my own kids, and all of that changed drastically. I was now once I got diagnosed and started chemotherapy, I was now dependent on other people to pick up my kids from school, to cook me a meal, to drive me to my appointments, to even like massage me when my bones would hurt or my muscles would ache. So I quickly was humbled and realized, wow, I need to ask for help. I need to depend on others. And there's others that will help you if you ask. So even on social media, I put out like a message to everyone because they're like, "How can we help you? How can we help you?" And at first, I didn't want any help from anyone because it's like, "No, no, I'm fine, I'm fine." But I learned that it's okay to ask for help, and it's funny because I was talking to my son just last night, and he's like, "Yeah, I learned that lesson when I was like 2." He's 9, and he's like, "I know to ask for help." And it's funny because as kids, we do ask our parents for help, and we ask for help all the time. And somewhere from when we're kids to when we become full blown adults, we lose that and we think we don't need, we become independent naturally. So the idea of asking for help kind of fades away. But once something goes wrong, or you get a disease or a sickness, or you become paralyzed or injured, you quickly realize like, hey, I need help. I need extra outside help. And it's of course help from the Lord as well. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. So you always need God's help. But it's just interesting that like he was like, "Yeah, dad, I learned that lesson a long time ago." And then I was like relearning that lesson. But yeah, so those are the two things cancer has taught me so far, among a lot of like trickling in like a lot of little things, a lot of little things as well. That I've learned while having cancer for 4 months already.
Absolutely. So you mentioned obviously there's some lessons that have come to light for you. Some it seems like your kid's already mastered. Help
Yeah,
your kid learns a lesson not to go to not asking for help, right? Because
right.
I experienced that as well. Not asking for help causes a lot of pain for yourself and others.
It does.
Lean on each other, build a community, creates life to be truly beautiful.
Yeah,
So my
for
question
real.
is, has your cancer journey helped your family learn anything new about life?
Yeah, it's brought my family a lot closer together. When I got diagnosed, I decided to move in with my parents, and my mom is my primary caregiver. There's this popular saying that you don't fight alone. Like when you have cancer, no one fights alone. And that is so true. I have my family and my friends supporting me throughout this journey. And I chose to move back in with my parents. So currently I live with my parents. It's crazy. I never knew at 40 years old I would be living with my parents again. But that was interesting. It really like they had to get to know me again. And my dad says I'm a great roommate and stuff. Um, so it's been interesting because I haven't lived with my parents since the age of like 24, I think it was like 24, 25 was when I moved out, and now I'm 40. So it's been a few years since I've lived with my parents. So that's that actually has brought us closer together. And my family has just been amazing. I had the option to create like a GoFundMe so that people can give me money just to help me during this time. And my family's like, no, we got you. Like, my family's going to take care of me. And everyone else, like outside people or friends or people watching me, they could do other things to help you. But my family really supported me emotionally and financially, which was such a huge blessing.
That is a huge blessing. Once again, family is family, friends, and family doesn't need to be blood. Fortunately for you, family is blood.
Yeah.
But to anybody out there, even if your parents aren't around, you have family.
Yeah.
If you're going through cancer, a similar journey, any challenge for that matter, family is family and they're there for a reason. Reach out, ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't make you weak. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise, and we have to understand that.
So, how long did it take for you to really accept that lesson in your life? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we
No,
like it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, but we don't truly believe it. How long? What took you to really switch that belief system to truly own that?
well, Braden, it took me having cancer. Short answer, but yeah, I have endured 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and I lost my hair. I'm currently bald right now, so I lost my hair, and chemotherapy is horrible because it literally kills all of your good cells and bad cells, and your body becomes fatigued. You get this like weird metal taste in your mouth. It feels like metal goo is like coming out of your mouth. So everything you taste tastes like that metal substance. And your nails begin to form horizontal lines. Like, I don't know if you could see, but my nails have like lines on them, which is a reminder that there was one point where all of my cells died and then regrew, died and regrew. So there's 4 lines on there for 4 rounds of chemo. You sometimes develop, like, the side effects include neuropathy, where the tips of your fingernails and toenails become tingly and numb. And you just, you're at a constant state of like nauseousness, and it's horrible. Your whole demeanor, like, I couldn't really take a deep breath. I was like speaking very low, and my cell phone, when I picked up my cell phone, it felt like a brick. Like, it felt super heavy. And then chemo also fogs up your brain and your thoughts. I think they were like, hey, how do you spell what was it? Shadow. I think they were like, how do you spell shadow? They were asking the family, and I like kind of tried to chime in, and I was like, SWV. I couldn't really SWV is a music group, by the way. But I was like, wow, like, it just kind of came out. And so it was at that point, Braden, where I was like, I need help. I need to just accept the fact that I can't do it on my own, and I'm going to need to depend on others. And it's okay. It doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me less than. It's just the state of being that I'm at right now. And it's better to ask for help than to not ask for help and try to like mess up and do it on your. I was fumbling, like dropping things, spilling things. It was awful. It was awful. So that was the point where once I started chemo, about round 2, round 3, is like, yeah, I need help. I can't do this on my own. This is really affecting my body.
And look at where you're at now, man. You should be, I'm proud of you. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm able to drive again, which was such a great feeling. I felt 16 all over again. And my eyebrows started growing back, so that was an amazing thing. And there's just progress that is happening, you know. So yeah, I'm proud of myself. I don't think it hit me yet, Braden, or it's gonna hit me until this is all over, and then I'm gonna be like, what the heck just happened? I'm still kind of in it, I'm still. It's hard. It's definitely a journey, And I know so many people who have cancer now because I've been so vocal about it, and people have been telling me their stories and stuff. And it's been really eye-opening that how many people live with this and have gone through it. Some people have had cancer 4 times, like it returned 4 different times in their life, and they still chose to fight it and live. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if my cancer were to ever return, I would be a mess. I would just be like, no, I can't do it again. And people have done it 4 times.
Absolutely.
So
Well, let's talk about that, like the hardships that cancer has really caused for you. What is
yeah,
turmoil for you, your family? What has that really looked like?
yeah. I mean, wow. I don't want to. I mean, if I cry, I cry, but it's traumatizing. We'll start when I first found out that I had cancer. So I go to the ER, and I go in and I say, "Hey, I'm having trouble swallowing." Well, first I went to my primary doctor like a month ago, like a month prior. So like in May, I went to my primary doctor. I told him that I was having trouble swallowing, and he was like, "Really?" Like he kind of treated me kind of rudely, and he's like, "Okay, well, we'll put in a test in a few months where they'll see how much you actually do swallow." I think it's called I forgot what type of test it was, but he's like, "You'll take this swallow test in a few months. You'll be fine. You're a healthy 40-year-old." I was like, okay. So I trusted what the doctor had said. But quickly, 2, 3 weeks after that encounter with the doctor, the swallowing got worse. And that's when it like was staying right here. And I just coughed up my food. And so I went to the emergency room, and I'm like, hey, I waited like 8.5, almost 10 hours at the emergency room, and I was just listening to podcasts and things like that. And I ended up uh, getting a CT scan, and they scanned my body, and we did blood work. And the doctor was like, "Your blood work came out fine. I'm sure your CT scan is going to come out fine too. You seem like a great, healthy man who's never drank, smoked, anything like that." So he came back and his face was blank, and he was like, "We found a mass in like your throat area." And I'm like, "Okay, like what does that mean?" And I didn't know that they use the term mass and tumor simultaneously. And I didn't know that's basically the same thing. So I didn't hear tumor because he didn't say tumor. I just heard mass. So I was like, oh, okay, I have a mass, whatever that means. Like, I guess it's like a clump of cells. Like, okay. And he's like, so we're gonna have to admit you overnight and do some testing. So you're gonna stay here at the hospital. So I called my parents and I'm like, hey, they found a mass in me and they want me to like stay over. And they're like, whoa, that's pretty serious. So I stayed over, and because I was shoving food down my throat, like I was trying to eat for months. And so it got to the point where I was chugging water, trying to like push it down, and then I that didn't work anymore. So I started like putting my hands on my throat and pushing it down. And then the last phase was pounding my throat and chest, and I was like pounding my food trying to break it down to the point where I couldn't swallow at all. So those are like the 3 stages. And so they admitted me, and because I was forcing food down my throat, pounding it and shoving it and guiding it down my throat, I developed a lot of inflammation. And so all of the inflammation that was developing and building up, when they went to put a scope down my throat, it's called an endoscopic ultrasound. They used the big scope, the adult scope, to go down, and the adult scope was too big because the inflammation was so much that they had to pull out the adult scope and get a pediatric scope and put it in my esophagus. And so they were able to get like a small piece of something and take it out to biopsy it. And when they did the test and ran the test, they just saw that it was inflammation. And so they let me go home. They're like, "Oh, you just have inflammation. Like, we're going to let you go home." So I got discharged from the hospital, and I went to work the last day of school for, I went to an elementary school and I subbed there, and it was their last day. So I was able to work one last day. And then I ran a 5K that Saturday. So I think I got out on a Thursday, went to work on a Friday, and then ran a 5K on a Saturday. On Monday, they called me and they're like, hey, we only got inflammation from the biopsy, but we didn't really touch the mass. So we're going to let you go on an all liquid diet where you only can drink liquids and then come back in like a week and we're going to biopsy you again and check and see if it's cancerous or not. And I'm like, "Whoa, this mass, aka tumor could be cancerous?" They're like, "Yeah, it could very well be cancer." And I was like, that was when it hit me like, what? So I was like, oh my gosh, I might have cancer. So that was like really scary and just hard to digest. So I was like, okay, I might have cancer. I'm like, I hope I don't. So I go throughout my life and I start to feel very weak and fatigued and I'm tired and I'm like, man, maybe I'm just emotionally drained, you know? And so I'm like, it was a Saturday. I think a week had went by, so it was Saturday now. And I say, you know what? I'm just gonna work up the strength, and I'm gonna cook my family a nice dinner. So I went in the kitchen. I started cooking like biscuits, and I made these really good veggie patties where you like squash up broccoli and you add mozzarella cheese and you make you put an egg in it and then like mix it all around and make these like veggie patties. So I made veggie patties and I made fried chicken and it was just like a and veggies and it was just a really good meal. And by the time I was done making the meal for my family, I sat down on the couch and I was like, man, that kind of wore me out. I'm tired. And then I started shaking. I was like literally like shaking. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And I immediately got really cold and really white. And so naturally, when you get cold and you're shaking, I went to my closet and I grabbed like a beanie. I was like, I put on a beanie and I was like putting on jackets and sweaters. And I was like, and my dad, he like walked by and he was like, son, are you okay? And I only could mumble out the words like call mom. And so he immediately got my mom, and my mom looked at me and was like, we're going to the ER, like let's go. And so I was like shaking, like going to the ER. And it was funny because my aunt was visiting and she never really visits. And so she was visiting and she had finished her meal, her dinner, and she like went up to me and she's like, I just want to thank you for dinner and it was really good. And I was like looking at her like, okay, like I kind of don't want to have a conversation right now. But you know, she was just being kind and thanking me, but I was like literally going through something crazy. And then my son comes in and he's like, hey dad, but and I'm just like trying not to convulse in front of my son because I don't want him to get scared. So I was trying to hold the shaking in. So right when he came in, I was like stiff, but I was still like shaking. And I think all the pressure like went into my back and my back started hurting. Anyway, so we rushed to the hospital and thankfully there was only one patient ahead of me in line and I was on a wheelchair and I was like shaking and sweating and I was white and they look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, like get him in, get him in. So all these nurses come to me and everyone's like surrounding me. They're asking me questions. They're asking me my birth date. They're asking me if I know what day it is. And I lay on the stretcher. They take off all my clothes and they're just like poking me with IVs and giving me fluids and they're like, what do you have? What prior illnesses do you have? I'm like, nothing. I just couldn't swallow. Like I was just like, well, my mom was kind of talking too. And it turns out I was going through sepsis shock. So Google that if you're listening. Like it's called sepsis. And it's basically where bad bacteria infects your bloodstream and it goes all over your body and your body's trying to like saying what the heck is going on. And if you let it reach all of your body, it will infect your major organs and kill your major organs and then you'll die. So it's just a matter of time before the blood flows throughout everything and just kills you. So I was dying, and I was literally gonna die if I wasn't seen right away. And so they did not know what antibiotics to fight that type of sepsis until the blood work came back. And then they would know, okay, we'll use this type of antibiotic to fight that specific bad bacteria. But they couldn't, get an immediate blood culture back. And so they just gave me the strongest antibiotic and hoped that it calmed my body and cleaned out the bad bacteria in my blood. So that was, you know, I know I'm talking in thorough detail about this. So that happened, and fast forward to Thursday. So I went in on Saturday, and I stayed in the hospital trying to recover from sepsis. And Thursday was my appointment to get another endoscopic ultrasound so that they can actually biopsy the mass to see if it was cancer. So at this point, I didn't even know for sure if I had cancer. I was more concerned about just living and recovering from sepsis. And so they said, we might have to postpone the endoscopic ultrasound because you're still recovering from sepsis. You almost died. And I'm like, no, I want you to do the ultrasound, the endoscopic ultrasound on Thursday as planned. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And Thursday morning comes along and the doctor comes in. He's like, hey, do you want us to do that to you and find out, take that biopsy? I'm like, yes, I'm ready. So they say, okay. So they follow through with the biopsy. And then the next day is Friday. And Friday, they're like, okay, you survived this and you're going to be able to go home. So we're going to discharge you. And I'm like, all right. So up until that point, my family, my parents, everyone was there with me all those days in the hospital. But because they were going to discharge me, my mom and my dad and everyone, they all left to go home and just kind of prepare my room and just to get me all ready. So it just so happened, Braden, that when everyone left and I was all alone, I get a phone call. And the phone call is to tell me the results of the biopsy. And yep, you guessed it. They tell me, hey, we got the results and you have cancer, unfortunately. And I was alone in a hospital room at like 4 p.m. And that was when my whole life just changed. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I have cancer. Like, I know what that means, but what stage is it? Do I have a certain amount of time to live? Is it spreading? Like, I had all these questions, Braden. And the guy on the phone was like, I don't know. I don't know. We have to wait. We have to do more tests, and I don't know. And I'm like, well, what do you know? Like you just told me this. Like what do I do? Like, do I need a follow up appointment? Like he's like, I don't know. And he started like stuttering, like I don't know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he really doesn't know. So I said, you know what, sir? It's Friday. Thank you for telling me, I guess, and just have a great weekend. Like, thank you and bye. Like, you don't have any answers. You just told me this and then you just left me answerless. So I hung up, and then the nurse comes in and she sees me like I'm white as a ghost, and she's like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "No, I just found out I have cancer." And she was like, "Oh." She was like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "Are you okay?" Like, "Oh my gosh." And she hugged me because I developed like a relationship with the nurses, being there, and they're like, "You're a good patient. Like, you're so like, positive and stuff." So she hugged me, and yeah, and I called my I think my aunt had called, and I told her, and then my parents came back. They're like, "Okay, we're ready to take you home. Like, it's an exciting day. You're coming home from the hospital." And then when they wheeled me out, I told my mom like, "Hey, they told me I have cancer." And my mom was like, "What?" And so it just changed my life. So that's the story of me finding out that that yeah, I in fact have cancer.
And so far you're coming up on top, man. You're climbing this journey, this mountain, and that's a beautiful thing. Cancer's not beautiful, let's be real. Don't wish that
It's
upon your worst enemy, but
no, really. Yeah.
the fact that you've consistently persisted, maintained a mindset that I'm sure sometimes alone is really hard to maintain a positive outlook. But you've persevered, man, and that's something to like hats off to that. On the flip side, right? That's
So
truth.
then, wait, there's actually a little part two to the story. So I go home and it's a Friday, and my ex-wife, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, everyone's like in a circle on the living room. We're all there. We're just like, whoa, wow, like Mark has cancer. And immediately, and I'm not saying this to make fun of anyone, or I'm just saying what happened. My mom, she says, the divorce made you get cancer. I'm just gonna say it. The divorce. It was the divorce. And I was like, what? And my ex-wife was like right there. We were just like, what? And then my ex-wife, she's like, she's like, it's your eating. Your eating gave you cancer. Like it has to be like what you ate. And then my dad was just like, well, you're stressed a lot. Like you maybe it's just stress. And then my sister was like, you know what? Just max out all your credit cards and take a trip wherever you want to go in the world. Wherever you want to go. Just go. Just go. And so everyone had their own theories, their own way of like handling it, and I had to go into comfort mode. I was like putting out fires like, no mom, we don't know where it came from, and no ex-wife, like maybe, we don't know for sure if it was my eating, and no dad, like I have a therapist and I had a life coach, like I don't really, I think I handle stress well. I'm exercising, and I told my sister, like, I'm not thinking about a trip right now. So I had to like de-escalate the situation. And for several days, like for like 3 or 4 days, I was putting others ahead of myself. And I wasn't really thinking and processing the fact that I have cancer. So I was just kind of people managing and just like, okay, guys, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, I know this is rough news. And so it wasn't until about the fourth day, it was late at night, and I was finally like the distractions and the conversations had settled, and I was alone, and I was like, wow, I really have cancer. And that's when I cried for the first time. And I let it sink in, and I was like, okay, all right. I'm not gonna ask why do I have cancer, because I may not know why for a while. But I am gonna ask, how did I get cancer? And I am gonna ask, what do I do? What do I do with this? Do I become public with this? Do I help others? Do I help myself? Do I get radiation or chemo, or what do I do from here on? And that was the time I was able to start making decisions as to where I want to go from here.
Absolutely. Well, you've conquered it up to this point once again. Hats off to you. I'm so proud of you, Mark, and I know so many people in your life are. You've handled this very well, given the situation at hand. So on the flip side, there's obviously been a lot of devils that you've had to take down, and you're kicking the devil's ass right now. So on the flip side, I know you've gotten closer with your family.
Mhm.
What are all the blessings that have come from this unfortunate situation?
Well, it's amazing to see the response of others. First of all, I didn't know that cancer affects so many people, whether you yourself have cancer, or you know someone who had cancer, or your father or mother or grandma or grandfather died of cancer. Cancer is just such a worldwide thing, and I didn't realize the bigness of it. And so the response is so beautiful. Some people don't know how to respond when you have cancer, or you find out that a loved one has cancer. And I'll read really quick the two notes that I received from friends, and trust me, I mean, there's things to say to someone who has cancer and things not to say to someone who has cancer. The things to say are things like, I'm here for you. I love you. I care about you. Whatever you need, I'm here. Those are beautiful things to say. Even to say, I don't know what to say. That's such a beautiful thing to say. So those are really awesome short one-liners to say to someone who has a sickness or a disease like that. Um, what not to say, and it can be overwhelming, is like, oh my gosh, you have cancer. Like, okay, you need to get on this pill. You need to take this medicine. You need to do this like holistic thing. You need to like, it's just so overwhelming where it's like, wait, what? Like, you give people regimens and solutions, and you only want to help, but it actually overwhelms the person. If they ask like, hey, do you have any like solutions or things that you would recommend me to take or drink or do, then it's like, yeah, tell me, but don't just like bombard me with all these things I gotta do right now. All I gotta do is stay alive. So anyway, so this is one message where it was so beautiful because he was like, Mark, I don't want to be selfish. I hope today you're feeling better and you're in good spirits. He's like, it took me a few weeks to write to you, because when I found out the news, I was at dinner and I dropped my utensils and my eyes just opened wide, and I was like, wow, like he really does have cancer. And I was in shock for a couple days, and I didn't know what to say and how to reach out to you, but now I'm reaching out. And I was like, whoa, like that's such a beautiful thing to say, that it took me a few weeks to write to you, but this is what, I'm finally able to write to you. So that was very real and transparent. And then my other friend, Carlos, he was like, I should have wrote to you sooner, but I didn't know where to begin. And then he started like, I'm in shock, you'll get through this. I'm sending you positive vibes, like, everything else. But to start off by saying, I should have wrote to you sooner, but I didn't know where to begin. It's like those are the types of things that I like to hear, because it adds the human factor to it, and it's not just a quick solution or a quick like, you're gonna get through this. God's got you. Like it's just like a human aspect. Like, wow, like it shocked me, and now I'm here for you. So yeah, that was a blessing, because I think what I'm learning is that there's so many people out there who care, and so many people out there who want to help, and and it's taught me that the human body is a healer, and it heals itself, it was designed in such a way to multiply cells and copy cells, and restore and renew and heal, um, itself. Wounds, we get scars, we get like scrapes, and the body heals. So I've learned so much. I've learned the bad things about like EMF, electric magnetic field, properties that are all around us. Like I've just learned so much. I feel like my eyes are now open to a whole new world.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for sharing all of this, Mark. Now I want to pick your brain on all the knowledge on how we can help the people, the young entrepreneurs in this world, how they can avoid this unfortunate news.
Yeah, no, that's a great question on how to avoid it. I mean, people will sometimes say cancer's everywhere, it's inevitable. You can get cancer from everything, which is a blanket statement, but it doesn't do much. It's like, okay, great. I could get cancer from everything. Okay. But I have learned that there are three main cancer preventers that you can do to help, lower the odds. The first one is eating right. We eat so much processed food in the world, and it's awful. It's hard to break down. It's hard for our bodies. It's really not good for us. So eat whole foods. Eat things that have come from the ground. Eat organically. So eat right. That will help you. It'll help. I'm not saying you'll never get cancer, but it will definitely help your body, and you'll feel good too. The second thing is to exercise. Exercise regularly. If you only exercise 2 to 3 times a week, bump it up to 5 to 7 times a week. Like exercise all the time. Your body needs to constantly move. Your body needs to constantly Be active. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So exercise. And the third thing I would say is to really manage your stress as much as you can, because we all lived through a pandemic in 2020. We are all suffering from some sort of childhood trauma. We are all trying to make it swim upstream in this world. And I recognize that we all have issues, we all have problems. And it's how we deal with the stress. And how you can deal with stress is by praying, meditating, breathing, having someone you can lean on, keeping it not keeping it bottled in your brain, but actually expressing it and vocalizing how you feel, seeing a therapist, a life coach. There's so many ways that you can deal with your stress and minimize your stress. I mean, it's always going to be there, but what are you doing to de-stress? So those are the three things that I believe from experience that will really reduce your risk of having cancer. And I'll throw in a bonus is like be aware of like EMF and radio frequencies. Buy little like I purchased this like this thing on Amazon where it's like a protector. So whenever my laptop or my iPad is on my lap, I'll put this on to kind of reduce the radiation. There's little pouches for your phone. If you keep it in your pocket, just put it in the pouch and then put it in your pocket, and that will help reduce the EMF, you know, frequency waves. So, yeah, so there's little changes that you can literally do that will help you. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm gonna say this probably completely wrong, but in Apple or like an average phone settings, when you say like agreed to the agreements or whatever the case is, it literally says, again, not saying this for quotes, so go do your research if you're listening to this, that your phone needs to be on average 2 inches away from your body.
Right.
If not,
Right.
they are not responsible for your death.
Yeah. Yeah, I read that the other day. It's so funny that you bring that up. Like if you go to settings and then I think you go to general, yeah, general maybe, and then legal no, it's not legal. Legal. Yeah, there's I forgot where you go to, but there's like 3 clicks away and it'll tell you that exact thing. And yeah, I never knew that. I never knew that they warn you. So yeah, that's a fact. You got it. Even switching from these to instead of having like everyone has AirPods, right? Like we all have AirPods, and we're like, oh, cool, they're stylish, and they stick in our ears. There's no wires. No, don't do AirPods. Do wires. Like that will help you a little bit. And don't do them at all if you don't have to. But yeah, so little things like that, like knowledge is power. So I want to empower you today for sure.
Absolutely. And the thing is, they've kind of turned the whole EMF thing as this voodoo, you're crazy. Why would you ever believe in that whole thing? That's just like I'm not trying to be political, but that's just an agenda. Like, see through the bull crap. There's a reason that they're telling you without telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again. There's a reason they're telling you without telling you.
Yeah.
So fix
Wake
it.
up.
Yeah.
Wake up. Yeah. I mean, when cell phones first came out, there were these huge studies being done of like how much radiation your ears and your brain and everything is getting. And then cell phone companies realized like, wow, we're making a lot of money. Pretty soon every human is going to have a cell phone. So let's not do those studies. Let's not push that narrative that cell phones cause a lot of radiation. So it got swept under the rug. And powerful companies like Android and Apple, they don't want you to know the real extent of damage that it's doing to our bodies. So they'll put in a little statement saying, hold it like 2 inches away and legally we won't be responsible. But we don't know if that's necessarily entirely true because it may be affecting us regardless. It may be hurting us just all the time. And it's our decision to have these electronic devices and technology. And I personally love technology. However, if I can use things like EMF protectors and pouches and stickers, then I'm going to use them. And I'm not going to, if you want to make fun of me for using them, or you believe it's a conspiracy. Nowadays, I don't believe anything's a conspiracy. There's always some truth to some sort of thing that's going on in the world. And we have to be awake, and we have to wake up and realize, like, people are liars out there. Companies lie to us, politicians lie to us. We have to be seekers of truth and find things out for ourselves.
Absolutely. That's powerful, man. So obviously, this goes right along with what I say a lot of the time on every podcast is that if you're here, you might as well become who you're destined to be, to do the things you're destined to do. We don't achieve without becoming. And eating right, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, and tackling those three core elements of life will naturally allow you to be the best version of yourself naturally. Eating,
Yeah,
working out, meditating, praying, but it's going to help you live a much more full life.
yeah,
Yeah, the benefit is that you're going to dramatically decrease the possibility of cancer diseases.
right.
So you're going to live a lot more fully.
Yeah, but you're also going to be feeling good, and just it's going to overall help you. And we've gotten, as a society, we've gotten too lazy. We don't walk as much. We don't connect as much. It's just so much where we have to be intentional now about how we get in our steps every day, how we eat every day, um, prepare for the next day. If you need a meal prep, meal prep is not, I repeat, meal prepping is not for gym rats, jocks, fit people. Meal prepping can be for anybody. Exercise is not for buff people. Exercise is for everybody. Like, let's change the narrative, change our way of thinking about these topics, and realize that this is for all. Like, we have to do this as a human race. We're all in this together. Like, no longer are the days of, like, oh yeah, you meal prep, like that's so nice for you. No, we should all meal prep. We should all get rid of plastic containers and switch to glass containers. We should all be mindful of our water, of our I could go on and on, but basically is, let's do this as a whole, and with everyone, and know that we're all in this together, rather than categorizing, like, oh, you're a fitness junkie, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, no, we're all in this together, and we're all learning together.
Amen. I love that. So, what are some of the other resources that have helped you get through this journey? Songs, books, you name it.
Yeah, yeah. So, there's this really cool, and I don't know why she just popped up in my head. Her name's Liz from Quilt Love. She's a quilt maker and sewer. So I actually went to her, and I got a quilt right here. And it's a quilt where people designed, like, a picture or a message, and they emailed her, and she sewed it onto the quilt. So it was really cool to make, quilt like this. And there's like a resource of, like, you could make quilts um for cancer patients. You can make quilts for weddings, for babies. Like, it's not just for cancer, it's for all occasions. So shout out to Liz from Quilt Love, quiltlove.com. But that's a resource. Another resource was ECAN. It's like the esophageal cancer action network. And so they were a good resource just for my specific type of cancer. Also, the American Cancer Society was great with me. They featured me on their Instagram page. They've been a great resource. But, you mentioned song and books. There's like two songs that really spoke to me right away. The first song was Oceans by Hillsong United. There's a line that says, I am yours and you are mine. And I think I was reminded during this cancer journey that I belong to God, and He's mine, and we're in this together. And that was a beautiful reminder. And It says, when my feet may fail and oceans rise, my faith will stand. And it says, my faith will be made stronger. And I really feel like that was the song that initially carried me in the beginning of this cancer journey, is Oceans by Hillsong United. And then another song that's more hip and more, it's rap. It's the guy from Black Eyed Peas. His name's Taboo. He had testicular cancer a couple years ago, and he wrote a song called "The Fight." And so that song is just, it pumps me up, and it's a great song about fighting for your life. And it says, if today was the last day of your life, like, how would you live it? What would you love? What would you do? What would you say? So it's a great song. And then actually I'll throw in one more song. It's by Sia, and it's called Elastic Heart. And I always tell people, my son got diagnosed with something when he was like 2 years old, and that like put a crack in my heart when I found that out, and it like put a little crack. So just imagine your heart, and there's like a little crack in it, and that really affected my life. And then years later, I got divorced, and that shattered my heart. It wasn't cracked anymore. My whole heart just went into a million different pieces, and it shattered my heart. And then as I healed and I got therapy and prayer and time went on, my heart came back into tact. And then once I got cancer, it stretched my heart, and it was elastic, and it allowed my heart to not break, not crack, but just stretch and see how far my heart can go. And it stretched my ideas, and it stretched my willpower and my capacity. And so Elastic Heart is like the perfect song, because it talks about how your heart's like a rubber band, and don't pull it too much, don't break it. It's strong, and I will not, it says, I will live and not die. And it's just a great song. So those are the songs that touched me. And then there's a couple of books too. My friend from high school, I have the book right here actually. My friend from high school got me a book called Peace in the Face of Cancer. It's by Lynn Ebby or Evie. And so that book has it's been so great, because this year, every year I choose a word, and this year my word is peace. And peace is the word that has guided me throughout 2024. And so peace in the fear in the face of cancer really spoke to me. And then another book that really spoke to me was You're Not Crazy, You're Grieving. It's 6 steps for surviving loss. And this book really is helping me, because I'm grieving my old life. I'm grieving so many things throughout this process of cancer. And we as people grieve things all the time, whether it's a loss of a job, a loss of a loved one, a loss of time, a loss of a friendship, a loss of hair, literally like physical stuff and emotional stuff. So this book really put a lot of things into perspective. So those are the songs and books that have really helped me throughout this time.
I love that, man. And those both of those books, even like I'm like, ooh, I'd love to
Yeah, no, I saw you like, oh wow, like yeah, I encourage you guys to get those books. Yeah, they're super encouraging, especially the grief one, because sometimes we live in a constant state of grief, and we need to know how to like address it, and steps to get better. I don't think we'll ever fully stop grieving until the end of our lives, and we're done and we go to heaven, and reach a place of like bliss, and where there's no tears and no sorrow. But we as humans, especially if you have a lot of life under your belt, you experience a lot of loss. And all grief is the loss that you experience of anything. So some people think, oh, you're grieving because there was a death in the family. Well, no, you're also grieving because you missed that job opportunity. You're also grieving because you know, you're nostalgic, and you miss your best friend from elementary school. Or, there's all these things that we grieve, and we have to put a name to that and call it grief. instead of calling it depression or calling it, you know, whatever you want to call it. It really is grief. It's us experiencing a loss, and it comes in waves, you know. And shout out to Stacy, uh Stacy, is it Knapp? Yeah, what's your last name? Well, shout out to a girl named Stacy. I'll look it up right now. She's a grief counselor and she's really great. She's based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and everyone should follow her. She's like really great in terms of dealing with grief. Her name is Stacy Knapp. Yeah, I was right. So Stacys and then Knapp. Stacy S. Knapp. So follow her because she's a great like person you want to have by your side when you're going through grief.
That's powerful. Yes, grief is such a big part of, and a lot of times the thing with grief too is a lot of people will actually describe a different emotion when it's really grief.
Exactly. You
That's
you get them twisted, mixed up, and it's really just grief. It's a loss that you're remembering or you're experiencing finally. And it's okay to feel that. You know, you don't your goal is not to get rid of grief. Your goal is to process through the grief and experience it and live it. And it's okay to grieve.
yeah, absolutely. I love that, Mark. Man, I could talk to you all day. I
I
probably
know.
go another hour with you. Uh, So last couple of questions for you, Mark, is if there was one thing that me and my audience could do for you through this time, what would that be?
Yeah, it's hard to pick one. Can I pick two?
You can pick three if you want.
Okay, so if you're listening, hey, it's nice to see you, talk to you, hear you, while you're hearing us. But you know, have hope. Always have hope. Like wherever at you're at in life, whether you have cancer right now and this just stumbled across your page or your YouTube or whatever, LinkedIn, you're gonna be okay and have hope. Never ever give up and always have hope, because hope is what keeps us alive and hope is what keeps us going. There was times where I felt like I was losing hope, and that's okay, but you have to realize like there is hope always, and there's always a cure to everything. Don't feel like you're cureless or helpless. There's always a hope in that. So have hope. That's number one that I would tell everyone. Like, hey, everyone listening, have hope. Just always don't let hope die. And the second thing is more practical. If you're like, hey, this guy's pretty cool, I want to help him out, or I want to check out his page or whatever, Instagram or YouTube. I have so earlier in the podcast I talked about how my family has my back, and I'm fortunate to have a family that is taking care of me, uh, physically and emotionally and financially. Everyone else, you guys can go the extra mile, and I created an Amazon wish list. And so that wish list is filled with random things that I want, either pertaining to cancer, like, you know, beanies, like there's these beanies that I asked for and someone purchased this for me. When I had a pick line, there's this like pick line thing where they insert the blood, the vials to get blood and chemo and stuff. People bought me like a pick line sleeve so I could take a shower and it won't like hit the pick line. And people bought me like a mug. Like there's this cancer like chemo mug. It says, "This is my chemo mug," and I will smash it into 1,000 pieces when this is all over. And you best believe I am gonna break this. um, and then there's a lot of items for my kids because my kids, you know, I'm not working right now, and so the holidays are coming up, and if you want to purchase like a little book for my kids or a little doll, I have a boy and a girl, or a Ninja Turtle for my kid. All that's on the wish list. So those are practical, nice ways to help me out, because I'm not creating a GoFundMe, and I'm not downing anyone who has created a GoFundMe, but I'm just taking care of through my family, and all everyone else. You guys can, you know, bless me with a little gift for Christmas or just because. So yeah,
I love that. Well done, man. I in the last question, or I actually have two more questions.
yeah.
What is your definition of an authentic life?
My definition of an authentic life is someone who lives a life of freedom, freedom to be who they are, freedom to say how they feel, and freedom to love who they want to love, and just practice like the essence of who they are. So yeah, so many times we're limited and we limit ourselves, or we suppress ourselves, or we do what we think we should do or what others want us to do. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's your choice. It's who you want to be. It's who you really are. If you don't like ranch, then you don't like ranch. Like if you don't like the Beatles or a certain music group, that's not who you like, and that's okay. Like we shouldn't want to change people and change people to be like us. We should just accept people for who they are. So being an authentic person is just living a life of freedom in every way.
I love it, Mark. And the last and final question. You've shared so much goodness, so you may not even have anything. Is there any one last piece of advice that you would love to leave for the audience today?
Yes, I actually on my wish list I received this like little plaque. It's a survivor plaque. It says survivor, and on it has like the definition of a survivor. And I just want to leave the audience and leave the listener with the fact that we are all survivors, whether we're surviving a 24-hour day or surviving minute by minute or surviving an terminal illness or surviving divorce or surviving whatever it is. We are all survivors in some way. So I want to remind you who you are. You are a person who survives. It's plain and simple. You are someone who lives and persists. You are a person who perseveres and overcomes. You are a person who copes well with difficulty in their life. You are a person who continues to function or prosper in spite of opposition, hardship, or setbacks. You are a survivor.
Amen to that. I love that. I've honestly never heard that quote or that statement, whatever you want to call it. That
Definition. Yeah. 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 I love it. You are a person who continues to function or prosper in spite of opposition, hardship, or setbacks. And that's all of us, man. Living through a pandemic, like trying to make ends meet, like trying to have a successful marriage, trying to raise kids. Like we are all surviving, and we need to give ourselves way more credit because it's hard. We live in a hard, fast-paced world, and we need to stop and realize, like, pat yourself on the back. Hey, you survived the day. You're surviving. You're persisting and living through opposition, through hardship, through setbacks. You are continuing to be functionable and prosperous throughout those things. So, yeah.
powerful, Mark. Thank you so much again for coming on. And again, well done for coming this far. You're almost there.
Yeah, I by the time this comes out, I will have endured an 8-hour surgery that removes part of my esophagus and part of my tumor. I mean, my whole tumor. And so hopefully, whenever you search me up or have an update, you'll see that I'm cancer free. Right now, I have cancer, but by the time this podcast comes out, I will be cancer free. And I will, I have a couple more rounds of chemo and then I'll go back to my normal life. But Braiden, I love you and I care about you. I'm so happy to call you my friend. And Megan, hi. I know you have a big part to do with this podcast. Megan's Braiden's wife. And yeah, dude, just thank you so much. I'm going to come out to Utah to visit you soon. I'm here in California, but I'm going to make the drive or the flight to see you once this is all over and I have my hair back and everything. But thank you for this opportunity. It was so fun. Like you said it. We could talk for days and hours, and so but thank you for this opportunity. I hope whoever's listening is inspired And remember, don't give up on hope. Always have hope, and you are a survivor.
Love it, Mark. Thanks so much. Love you, man.
Love you. Bye.